people would ask me, how long have you been polyamorous? And I think about it and I'm like, I always was. I just didn't know that there was a term for it. And I say that because when I started dating as a teenager, I either was with John, sorry about that, or I had two boyfriends. And me and John were off again and on again because he was moving around a lot. I was moving around a lot. My teenage years were very tumultuous. But when we saw each other, we were automatically just together. That was it. But then when we fell out of touch for whatever reason, I would have two other boyfriends. And then when I would run into John, I would be like, okay, don't call me no more. We're done. And they were like, what did I do? I'm like, nothing. Don't call me no more. It was rude and it was cold-hearted. And that is what I will call unethical non-monogamy, because I was not open about, well, I'm ending this relationship with you and with my other boyfriend because I'm going to be with John. And I'm questioning now, like, was it really unethical? Because my having two boyfriends, if one of them asked me, like, where are you going this weekend? Let's go to the movies. And I would say, oh, I'm going out. And they would say, oh, who are you going out with? I would say, I'm going out with Reggie. Like, I didn't promote that I had two boyfriends, but at the same time, I didn't hide it. And so if they asked me, I would say, well, yeah, I do. I am seeing someone else. And the reason for that was I thought everyone was that way. I did not think it was strange. It is still looking blank in that area. I am so sorry, it's distracting me. I thought everyone was that way. And so that's why I didn't promote it or announce it. I just thought that's how people were, that people had multiple partners. If you're attracted to someone or if there's a connection, then you just be with that someone. And one relationship didn't have anything necessarily to do with the other, and it didn't mean that you cared for one more or less. And so that's why now I'm questioning, was it unethical? Because I wasn't open about it. But the reason I wasn't open about it was because I didn't realize it was an issue. Like, I thought everybody had multiple partners. And for me, I never even cared about, back then, like, are you seeing somebody else or who's this person? Just respect me and be nice to me. And so it wasn't nice that I was just cutting people off. That was cold-hearted. I was a teenager. I'm not that way anymore. But for all intents and purposes, I will say that that is what I would consider unethical non-monogamy, is that I was not open with each partner, that I had an additional partner. And so coming to learn about the term polyamory probably like about 6 or 7 years ago, and I'm 50. And when I found out the word polyamory, and I'm like, oh, what is that? And then it was explained to me, and I started reading articles and books. I'm like, wow, like, that explains why I was the way I was. Like, that's just a part of who I am. And so when people ask me, you know, how do you know you're polyamorous, or when did you become polyamorous? I'm like, I always was. Except when I was married, and I'm going to get to that. So what I practice now is, or what I live now, is consensual non-monogamy. When I meet a guy, I tell him I am polyamorous, meaning I remain open to building connections and forming healthy, potentially, hopefully, long-term relationships with other people. And so they know up front that even if we get along and we connect and we decide to be in a relationship, that doesn't mean I'm going to be locked into not ever seeing another man while I'm seeing you. And so that's why I say I live according to consensual non-monogamy. And so I tell guys up front, this is who I am and this is how I live my life. And from there, if they're okay with that, then we discuss boundaries. My personal boundaries, whether I'm dating someone else who's polyamorous or not, and I talk to them about what their boundaries are. Things like, when would you want to know that there's another person in my life? When I first have an interest, or when I think there may be an interest, or if I think that someone likes me, or do you not want to know anything until there is a connection built? Also time-wise, like, some people are time-intensive. I am not very time-intensive. I'm not high maintenance at all. Just text me, you know, every other day, or call me every other day, and I'm fine. I don't require a lot from other people, but some people do, and so that's something to talk about. And while I'm thinking about it right now, and I'll mention it, you know, knowing what your love language is. and hoping the other person knows what theirs is too. Because for someone, if their love language is time, they're going to want a significant amount of time, more time than you may want to invest in that person, and not because of who they are, but just because of how you are and how you process things. You also want to discuss boundaries about your future goals. Like, do you want to be married? Do you want to have children? Do you want to live in the country? Do you want to live in the suburbs? Do you want to move out of the country? You know, do you see yourself living in a tiny house? Do you see yourself on a farm? So just talking about basic things in your life, just to see like where you line up with that other person. You also want to talk about your boundaries regarding incompatibilities or deal breakers. You want to talk about sexual boundaries. You know, if I'm seeing you and I meet someone else, you know, when do you want to know if my other relationship becomes sexual? Do you want to know when it's a thought, or I'm thinking, you know what, I'm really feeling this guy, and I'm really feeling like, you know, I'm ready to go further with him? Like, do you want to know when I have that thought, or do you want a phone call the next day, be like, hey, you know, I had safer sex with someone last night? So those are different things you talk about. And also emotionally, some people are emotional, and you can be in an emotional relationship and not be sexual with that person, and that's something to discuss too. And emotionally, I don't think I'm an insensitive person either. Like, I do think a lot about a lot of things, but I don't act on emotion quickly. Even if something bothers me, I sit and I think about it. Very rarely will you see me just explode or just go off and just be like, what the? You know, I'm just not that person. And so if you're meeting someone and they're telling you that they're bad at managing their emotions, that might be an incompatibility issue. But I have videos on incompatibility and deal breakers and preferences, so I'm not going to talk about that here. But this is just some of the boundaries that you have that you feel may be important for the other person to know, and also important for you to know about them, so that you can see how much you do align with each other, which will help you determine if you are compatible and if it is a good chance for you to have a healthy, potentially long-term relationship with that person. Okay, there's a website called poly.land, and I learned a term. And it was ambiamorous. And I'm like, ambiamorous, what is that? And so she described ambiamorous as a person who is content being exclusive or being with multiple partners. And I really feel like that's me. Like, I can be content either way. However, I do say I'm polyamorous because I am open to building connections with multiple people if the opportunity comes up. So I'm not always looking for additional partners, but I'm open to, if I meet someone and you just happen to click and it's just like, wow, this is a really cool dude. Like, I would really like to spend time with him and get to know him. And so that's what that is, ambiamorous. You can be content being exclusive, and you can be equally content when you do have multiple partners. I want to move on to monogamy and why I think there's so many problems with it. There's problems with polyamorous people too. So do not think I'm saying polyamory is a cure-all or that everybody should be that way, because how you are is how you are, and how you think is how you think. But I feel like one of the main issues with monogamy is that relationships are built on assumptions. Like that list I just went through, and I'm sure there's more that can be added to the list of discussing personal boundaries with people. Most people historically that I knew, because right now I do know people who are both polyamorous and monogamous, they meet someone, they like that person, they get serious with that person, and they just assume that the two of them are exclusive to each other. And so then when one comes along and says, oh, I was with so-and-so, or you look at their social media and they're posting pictures with this other person, they're like, oh my gosh, who's this person? You're cheating on me. They never discussed if they were going to be exclusive or not. There's this assumption that once we become serious, we're not going to see anybody else, period. And that goes into, you know, getting married. People cheat. The husbands cheat, the wives cheat, and I wonder, like, when I see articles and posts on social media and things like that, I wonder, like, did they have this discussion before they got married? Like if they were going to be exclusive or not, or was it just this general assumption that we're married, so it's just me and you, against the world type thing? And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit just to share that in my marriage, I was exclusive because of family, society, and religious expectations. Ironically, the first husband, I do highly suspect he was cheating. The second husband, I know for sure that he was cheating. And so it's ironic that I'm trying to live according to all these other standards, that the marriage is ended due to infidelity on the husband's part. Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing. And again, I do believe it's because of people trying to live according to family and societal and religious expectations. And so they put on this front of, I'm this good person, but then how good are you if you're not openly communicating with the significant person in your life, be it your spouse or just a significant person? And so that creates a whole another thing. So that leads me to, or is a part of, what's called the relationship escalator, which is when I was saying you meet someone, you become serious with someone, you move in with someone. If you want to get married, then you marry that someone. If you've already agreed you want kids, then you have kids. And so it's like you meet, you become exclusive, you live together, get married, and have children. And it doesn't even have to be in that order other than meeting them. Because some people have kids and then say, okay, let's live together, where they live together and have kids and say, let's get married. So that can be in any order. But there's this general assumption, again, going back to monogamy thinking for a lot of people. I'll date around, but when I meet someone I want to be serious with, we're going to be together, live together, get married, have kids. But did you really even discuss any of those things, or did you just assume that's the trajectory that the relationship was going to go in? And so it's like an escalator, just goes one way. You get on the bottom, you meet them, you like them, you move in, you get married, you have kids, and live happily ever after until you find out one or the other is cheating. And so that's just the main issue, is just a lack of open communication, along with making assumptions of being exclusive with your partner. I have on my paper too, being polyamorous is not a competition or a comparison among your partners. Some people are like, okay, well, you want to be with this one because it is, or is he better at this, or is she better at that? It's not about, comparing or a competition. Different people bring different things into our lives, and it's not that anything particularly is missing. We're multifaceted beings. None of us are one-dimensional, and I personally feel like it's unrealistic to expect one person to meet every single need that you have. Think about it this way. I didn't grow up in a two-parent home, but if you did, your dad might have been stern and your mom might have been nurturing. And so one might have been like, this is what you do. And the other one's like, oh my gosh, you cut your knee. Come here, baby. Or it could have been reversed. The dad could have been the nurturing one and the mom could have been the one, hitting you with the switch. And having brothers and sisters. This sister might be fun to go clubbing with. This brother might be fun to go bowling with. This brother might be fun to, run track with. And so different people fulfill different areas of our lives. And I believe that we do the same for others as individuals. And just how you love both of your parents, and you love your siblings, you love your aunts, you love your uncles, you love your platonic friends. How is that any different than loving someone else on a more intimate level? You know what I'm saying? And so when I explain it that way to people, they're like, wow, that doesn't make sense. But then they're like, oh no, I couldn't, have sex with, him if I knew he was having sex with someone else. Which leads me to the next point. Polyamory is not always about sex. There's people who are demisexual. There's people who are asexual. I know someone personally who's in a poly family. There's like 5 or 6 of them. And I think only 2 of them are sleeping together. polyamory is not a free-for-all, threesome, foursome, have sex type of thing, orgy or whatever. For some people it may be. But for people in my circle, people I know, polyamory is about building healthy and potentially long-term relationships. It's not about having sex. And what I come across is people do think, oh, you just want to sleep around. I'm just like, dude, you know, I am so particular about who I even hug. It is not about the sex. It is not. But for some people it is. And so it's important to ask someone, if someone tells you they're polyamorous, ask them, what does that mean to you? It may mean they just want something different every now and then, or they may want to build emotional connections with people, or they may be open to emotional and physical connections with people. Ask people what it means. And having said that, polyamory in general is an umbrella term. There are so many different configurations within polyamory. There's some people who are swingers, which is controversial if they're polyamorous or not, because polyamorous is about loving relationships, whereas swinging is known to be just for sex, casual sex, no strings attached sex with other couples and other people. But swingers, some of them say they're polyamorous. There's open relationships where you might be with 4 people, but you're still free to see other people. There's closed relationships where you might be with 4 people and you're the only 4 that you can be with. Well, 3 because you would be the 4th one. So it's like you're only allowed to be with each other. Those are closed relationships. Triads are when there's 3 people in a relationship, and that can be open where one of the 3 can see other people, or it can be closed where they only see each other. Well, the 2, because then you would be the 3rd. There's polyfamilies. There's solo polyamory. There's relationship anarchists. Like, there's so many different terms, and no one person fits neatly in any one box. That's why I'm saying, if someone tells you they're polyamorous, ask them, what does that mean to you? And listen to what they tell you. And if they're not able to explain it to you, just run. Just run away. Because I personally believe people should be able to explain their logic and their thought process behind who they're telling you that they are. That's just me. That's just me. Also, the last thing I have on here about polyamory is I also run into people thinking polyamory is about no strings attached sex, casual sex or hookups, and I'm just like, no, that's not me at all. Like, if that's what you think, you just go away, because that's not what it is for me. And I also meet some people who say they're okay with polyamory until they meet someone that they want to be serious with. And I'm like, well, that's not how I define polyamory. If you're going to ditch all of your people that you're seeing because there's one that you want to be serious with, then how is that polyamory where you have the ability to love and care for multiple people at the same time? That's just me. And there are some people who seeing multiple people is just a part of their dating process. And so they may be dating and having sex with, 3 or 4 different people, but then they meet the one they want to be serious with and they cut everyone else out. That's why I'm saying ask people what it means to them, because it can mean so many different things. There was something else I wanted to say and then I forgot. And so, but I'm gonna leave this video here. I think I did address all of my notes. I think it was something about just loving different people. This is what I was going to say. For me, polyamory, as I said earlier, is about building and maintaining healthy and potentially long-term relationships with multiple people. And what that also means is, polyamory for me is being able to do that without love or care for one person, diminishing your love or care for another person. And just like what I was saying about, you love both your parents, you love your sisters, you love your brothers, you love your cousins, you love your aunties, your uncles, you love your friends. You don't love one any less because you love another uncle. You don't love one friend more because you meet someone else you want to be friends with. And I'm talking about platonic friends. And so that's the concept for me, is your heart able to love multiple people more or less equally? And not to say it like it's on, you're measuring, but can you care for John the same way you care for Robert? Can you care for Susan the same way you care for Karen? I probably shouldn't have used Karen, because now it's like Karen is not a good name. But you get what I'm saying. Care for one does not take away from care from another. And part of being a good partner is letting your partners know, if you have more than one, that you do value them and you care about them. You're not trying to replace them, and just reassuring them of their standing in your life and in your heart and in your mind, and being considerate, of their feelings, and keeping communications open, and just being honest and not making assumptions or taking things or people for granted. And so that's it for this video. I thank you for being here. If you have questions, leave them below. And if you are a polyamorist, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what it means to you. But let me know what your experiences are, or if you've met someone who is polyamorous and they explained it to you, but it didn't quite make sense. Like, just whatever you want to ask me, let me know, and I will let you know my personal thoughts and my experiences with polyamory. And click subscribe and click the notification bell. And so I hope this video was informative to you, and you will see me in the next video. Thanks.